If you really want to find the high-stakes drama happening in your town, forget the local news. The real stories are actually hiding in plain sight, inside some of the most boring-sounding documents you can imagine. City council agendas, grant applications, and court filings. So let's go find the hidden stories of our communities. So let's dive right into that. We're going to peel back all those layers of bureaucracy to answer that very question. Because I promise you, buried under all the jargon, that's where you'll find everything that truly matters. Real human need, raw conflict, and that constant universal struggle to build a better life. All right, so every story needs a setting, right? We're going to start with the big picture, the official blueprint that pretty much every town creates for itself. This is the world of plans, priorities, and public meetings. Now, for our story, we're focusing on Albany, Oregon. But honestly, this could be your town. It could be any town. Every community operates on a similar set of official records, this paper trail that outlines all its hopes and, yeah, its challenges too. It all starts with something that looks like this, an agenda for the Community Development Commission. I know, it looks incredibly dry, right? But if you look a little closer, they're discussing things like affordable housing and setting goals that are, and I'm quoting here, measurable and obtainable. You see, this isn't just an agenda. It's kind of like the town's conscience, just put into bullet points. Okay, so you have these official plans, but how do they actually become reality? Well, it all comes down to funding. This is where that blueprint gets its lifeblood, and it's where the abstract language of city planning slams right into real, everyday human needs. Now, I want you to listen to this. This language, it's not from a novel. It's a direct quote from a formal grant application submitted by a nonprofit called Furniture Share. And just like that, the whole bureaucratic process suddenly has a face. It has a family, and it has a very, very real problem to solve. And here it is, the official ask. Furniture Share requested $35,000 in community development block grant funding. So that gut-wrenching description of a child sleeping on the floor, it is directly tied to this exact number. This is that moment a city budget stops being just a spreadsheet and becomes an act of real compassion. And this is where you really start to see the ripple effect. That same pool of city funding supports a whole ecosystem of care. It provides a safe space for kids at the Boys and Girls Club, it helps families afford critical home repairs, and it offers shelter to homeless teens. Each one of these bullet points represents a life that's been changed, and it's all traceable right back to these city documents. But a community doesn't just define its values through funding. It also defines itself physically, through land. And that brings us to the world of zoning. So you'll probably see terms just like this in your own town's codes. Exclusive farm use zone. Yeah, it sounds super technical, I get it, but it's actually a really powerful statement. It's the community officially deciding that some land is for farming and that identity needs to be protected from other kinds of development. And this is where you can see the trade-offs in action. The code gets incredibly specific. You can have a winery, sure, but big agri-tourism events are limited. You can build a wind turbine, but you definitely can't build a new subdivision. Think of these rules like invisible fences, They shaped the entire look and feel of a community for generations. Okay, so up to this point, we've seen the system working pretty much as it's designed. Planning, funding, zoning. But here's the thing. These documents don't just tell the story of a community's plans. They also become the official record of its deepest, most personal conflicts. So we've seen the impersonal system. Now we're going to see a single, intense human story that literally forced its way into the official record. What happens when the orderly files of the county courthouse become the stage for a family's war? This is taken directly from a legal motion filed in a custody dispute. And just look at how the most painful, chaotic events in a person's life get categorized and logged. Allegations of neglect, physical attacks, witness tampering, they're all transformed into these neat little rows and columns. This is the exact moment a deeply personal crisis becomes a public document. But if you dig just a little bit deeper into those files, past all the formal motions and the legal language, you find something else entirely. You find a raw, unfiltered human voice, crying out from inside all that paperwork. This is a direct quote from a personal complaint, written in the first person. The language is just so jarring, isn't it? Especially after all that bureaucratic text we were just looking at. There are no measurable and obtainable goals here. This is just pure, desperate testimony. And here's another piece. This is the story of a life lived in fear,
documented not for a book or a movie, but for a court file, hoping the system will finally listen. This is the human story that the official blueprint is supposed to protect, but sometimes it really struggles to contain it.
And that really brings us to this central paradox here. All of that pain, all of that fear and trauma gets processed through forms that look exactly like this: a sterile contract, a digital signature. It's this massive gap between a real, lived human experience and the cold documents that are meant to record it. So the next time you get a thick envelope from the city or see a notice for a zoning meeting, don't just see it as paperwork. See it for what it really is: a library of hidden stories. A record of your community's biggest dreams and its most painful battles, just waiting to be read.